Part 1. Information Asymmetry, Secrets and Agents. In 2007, the state of Washington introduced a new rule aimed at making the labor market fairer. Firms were banned from checking job applicants' credit scores. Campaigners celebrated the new law as a step towards equality. An applicant with a low credit score is much more likely to be poor, black or young. Since then, 10 other states have followed suit. But when Robert Clifford and Daniel Schwag, two economists, recently studied the bans, they found that the laws left blacks and the young with fewer jobs, not more. Before 1970, economists would not have found much in their discipline to help them mull this puzzle. Indeed, they did not think very hard about the role of information at all. In the labor market, for example, the textbooks mostly assumed that employers know the productivity of their workers or potential workers, and thanks to competition, pay them for exactly the value of what they produce. You might think that research unfolding that conclusion would immediately be celebrated as an important breakthrough. Yet when, in the late 1960s, George Akerlof wrote The Market for Lemons, which did just that and later won its author a Nobel Prize. The paper was rejected by three leading journals. At the time, Mr. Akerlof was an assistant professor at the University of California, Berkeley. He had only completed his PhD at MIT in 1966. Perhaps as a result, the American Economic Review thought his paper's insights trivial. The Review of Economic Studies agreed. The Journal of Political Economy had almost the opposite concern. It could not stomach the paper's implications. Mr. Akerlof, now an emeritus professor at Berkeley and married to Janet Yellen, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, recalls the editor's complaint. If this is correct, economics would be different. In a way, the editors were all right. Mr. Akerlof's idea, eventually published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics in 1970, was at once simple and revolutionary. Suppose buyers in the used car market value good cars pieces at $1,000 and sellers at slightly less. A manufacturing used car, a lemon, is worth only $500 to buyers and again slightly less to sellers. If buyers can tell lemons and pieces apart, trade in both will flourish. In reality, buyers might struggle to tell the differences. Scratches can be touched off, engine problems left undisclosed, even odometers tampered with. To account for the risk that a car is a lemon, buyers cut their offers. They might be willing to pay, say, $750 for a car they perceive as having an even chance of being a lemon or a peach. But dealers who know for sure they have a peach will reject such as an offer. As a result, the buyers face adverse selection. The only sellers who will be prepared to accept $750 will be those who know they are offloading in a lemon. Smart buyers can foresee this problem, knowing they will only ever be sold a lemon. They offer only $500. Sellers of lemons end up with the same price as they would have done where there are no ambiguity. But peaches stay in the garage. This is a tragedy. There are buyers who would happily pay the asking price for a peach if only they could be sure of the car's quality. This information asymmetry between buyers and sellers kills the market. Is it really true that you can win a Nobel Prize just for observing that some people in markets know more than others? That was the questions one journalist asked of Michael Spence, who along with Mr. Akerlof and Joseph Stiglitz was a joint recipient of the 2001 Nobel Award for their work on information asymmetry. His incredulity was understandable. The Lemon's paper was not even an accurate description of the used car market. Clearly, not every used car sold is a dude, and insurers had long recognized that their customers might be the best judges of what risks they faced, and that those keen to buy insurance were probably the riskiest bets. Yet the idea was new to mainstream economists, who quickly realized that it made many of their models redundant. Further, breakthrough soon followed as researchers examined how the asymmetry problem could be solved. Mr. Spence's flagship contribution was a 1973 paper called Job Market Signaling that looked at the labor market. Employers may struggle to tell which job candidates are best. Mr. Spence showed that top workers might signal their talents to firms by collecting gongs like college degrees. Crucially, this only works if the signal is credible. If low productivity workers found it easy to get a degree, then they could masquerade as clever types. This idea turns conventional wisdom on its head. Education is usually thought to benefit society by making workers more productive. If it is to investment in education flow to the students who earn a higher wage at the expense of the less able, perhaps to universities but not to society at large. One disciple of the idea, Brian Kaplan of George Mason University, is currently penning a book entitled The Case Against Education. Signaling helps explain what happened when Washington and those other states stopped firms from obtaining job applicants' credit scores. Credit history is a credible signal. It is hard to fake, and presumably those with good credit scores are more likely to make good employees than those who default on their debt. Measures Clifford and Schwab found that when firms could no longer access credit scores, they put more weight on other signals, like education and experience. Because these are rarer among disadvantaged groups, it became harder, not easier, for them to convince employers to their worth. Signaling explains all kinds of behavior. Firms pay dividends to their shareholders, who must pay income tax on the payouts. Surely it would be better if they retained their earnings, boosting their share prices and thus delivering their shareholders likely taxed capital gains. Signaling solves the mystery. Paying a dividend is a sign of strength, showing that a firm feels no need to hoard cash. By the same token, why might a restaurant deliberately locate in an area with high rents? It signals to potential customers that it believes its good food will bring it success. Signaling is not only a way to overcome the Lemon's problem. In a 1976 paper, Mr. Stiglitz and Michael Rothschild, another economist, showed how insurers might screen their customers. The essence of screening is to offer deals which would only ever attract one type of punter. Suppose a car insurer pays two different types of customer, high risk and low risk. They cannot tell these groups apart. Only the customer knows whether he is a safe driver. Messrs. Rothschild and Stiglitz showed that in a competitive market, insurers can't profitably offer the same deal to both groups. If they did, the premiums of safe drivers would subsidize payouts to reckless ones. A rival could offer a deal with slightly lower premiums and slightly less coverage. We should feel away only safe drivers because risky ones prefer to stay fully insured. The firm left only with bad risks would make a loss. Some audit to related problem would afflict overmaker Obamacare, which forbids American health insurers from discriminating against customers who are already unwell. The car insurer must offer two deals, making sure that it attacks only the customers it is designed for. The trick is to offer one pricey full insurance deal and an alternative cheap option with a sizable deductible. Risky drivers will balk at the deductible, knowing that there is a good chance they will end up paying it when they claim. They will fork out for expensive coverage instead. Safe drivers will tolerate the high deductible and pay a lower price for the what coverage they do get. This is not a particularly happy resolution of the problem. Good drivers are stuck with high deductibles. Just as in Spencer's model of education, highly productive workers must fork out for an education in order to prove their worth. Yet screening is in play almost every time a firm offers its customers a menu of options. Airlines, for instance, want to milk rich customers with higher prices without driving away poorer ones. If they knew the depth of each customer's pockets in advance, they could offer only first-class tickets to the wealthy and better value tickets to everyone else. But because they must offer everyone the same options, they must nudge those who can afford it towards the pricier ticket. That means deliberately making the standard cabin uncomfortable to ensure that the only people who slum it are those with slimmer wallets. Hazard undercuts Eden. Adverse selection has a cousin. Insurers have long known that people who buy insurance are more likely to take risks. Someone with home insurance will check their smoke alarms less often. Health insurance encourages unhealthy eating and drinking. Economists first cottoned onto this phenomenon of moral hazard when Kenneth Arrow wrote about it in 1963. Moral hazard occurs when incentives go haywire. The old economics noted Mr. Stiglitz in his Nobel Prize lecture paid considerable lip service to incentives but had remarkably little to say about them. In a completely transparent world, you need not worry about incentivizing someone because you can use a contract to specify their behavior precisely. It is when information is asymmetric and you cannot observe what they are doing. Is your employee slacking? That you must worry about ensuring that interests are aligned. Such scenarios pose what are known as principal agent problems. How can a principal to behave how he wants when he cannot monitor them all the time? The simplest way to make sure that an employee works hard is to give him some or all of the profit. Hairdressers, for instance, will often rent a spot in a salon and keep their takings for themselves. But hard work doesn't always guarantee success. A star analyst at a consulting firm, for example, might do stellar work pitching for a project that nonetheless goes to a rival. So another option is to pay efficiency wages. Mr. Stiglitz and Carl Shapiro, another economist, showed that firms might pay premium wages to make employees value their jobs more highly. This in turn would make them less likely to shirk their responsibilities because they would lose more if they were caught and got fired. That insight helps to explain a fundamental puzzle in economics. When workers are unemployed but want jobs, why don't wages fall until someone is willing to hire them? An answer is that above market wages act as a carrot. The resulting unemployment a stick. And this reveals an even deeper point. Mr. Akerlof and the other pioneers of information economics came along. The discipline assumed that in competitive markets, prices reflect marginal cost. Charge above cost and a competitor will undercut you. But in a world of information asymmetry, good behavior is driven by earning a surplus over what one could get elsewhere. According to Mr. Stiglitz, the wage must be higher than what a worker can get in another job for them to want to avoid the sack. And firms must find it painful to lose customers when their product is shoddy. If they are to invest in quality, in markets with imperfect information, price cannot equal marginal cost. The concept of information asymmetry then truly changed the discipline. Nearly 50 years after the Lemons paper was rejected 3 times, its insights remain of crucial relevance to economists and to economic policy. Just ask any young black Washingtonian with a good credit score who wants to find a job.